Okay, just trying to figure this live out. Hello, everybody. Um, okay, I don't usually. Oh, here we go. Pin comment. Perfect. Not used to the live, so bear with me a moment. All right, everybody's logging in. Welcome to CLA's latest Friends and Fam IG live session. My name is Melissa. We're going to do a runner's recovery session with some self-massage tips. I am a registered massage therapist in Toronto, and a runner, obviously. So I love to combine mobility, stretching, a little bit of yoga into all my recovery sessions that I do with my running community and for myself. So hopefully you guys find this session well needed after everything happening in the world. And I know a lot of us use our runs to clear our headspace. So hopefully this recovery session resonates with you guys. We're gonna start just in a kneeling position. There's a lot of what we're doing is just simply gonna be kneeling on the mat. So if you have issues with your knees and need a blanket or a cushion, feel free to grab it now. And obviously, if you guys want to play music on your end while we do some stretching and movement, go for it. I like to practice more in silence, so there'll be no background noise coming from my end. But anyway, we're gonna start in a kneeling position. And I just want you guys to start centering yourself in this space. We're gonna move for about maybe 30 to 40 minutes. So get settled in and just start to anchor yourself. So we're gonna start with some breath work. If you want, you can bring your hands. I like to have sort of my middle fingers tips sort of touching. Bring your hands into your rib cage and your chest. So that way when you're inhaling, you can kind of feel that expansion in through your ribs and your midsection, and your fingers start to separate a little. And then when you exhale, they contract and come back in. So you really want to feel that whole rib cage section expanding and contracting as we're breathing in. So just take a few inhales in and out through your nose. Inhale. And you can choose to exhale either through your nose or through your mouth. And just remember to be aware through this whole session of what your body's telling you. If there's any movements that you find uncomfortable, pinchy, sharp pain, obviously you guys know your body's best, so always take that into account as we're moving. A few more breaths. And exhale. Beautiful. We're gonna kick off with a bit of a spicy one for our toes. So curl your toes under right away, and even try to lean back and wedge all your little toes. Try to get them pressed on the mat underneath you if you can, and then just sit right back. If you can try to keep your heels pushed close together, you'll probably feel it a lot deeper. Really excellent stretch for our plantar fascia, and also just to get a nice stretch into our toes. And you'll just take a few breaths, and if you need to ease off, you can always sort of lean forward a bit if you find this upright seated position in this stretch a little too intense. It's very understandable. This can get very uncomfortable. We're just going to take a few breaths in this position. Just try to allow yourself to relax as best you can in it. A few more breaths. Good. And then you'll slowly come up, release those toes, maybe even wiggle the ankles around a bit, going left or right. I'm just going to switch back to face forward. And as you come back to kneeling, spread your knees open just a little touch, and you're going to keep your fingertips by your side here. We're going to slightly lean back, and I just want you to start peeling your knees up. The tops of your feet are going to remain on the mat as you slowly just going back and forth, peeling up, getting a nice stretch for the fronts of our ankles. Beautiful. And just back and forth a few times. Good. All right, we're going to continue getting right into our ankles. So I'm going to come to a bit of a diagonal position. Extend your left leg all the way back behind you. Toes are curled under, just extended nice and straight. And from here, we're just going to start doing some ankle rolls. So your foot doesn't leave the ground. You're rolling from the top of your foot onto the balls of your feet, and you're just going to start rotating in one direction for a few times. And then we're going to pause and go the opposite direction. And again, all these movements, you're really trying to take stock here. How does the ankle feel? Is everything feeling like it's moving and grooving okay? Are you feeling tension through your calf, through your Achilles? Good. We'll come back to those toes just being on the mat, and we'll just rock back and forth. Just pressing the heel back and forth a few times, mobilizing through the ankle. Beautiful. And now we're just going to pause. Really press that heel back towards your wall. For me, my balcony, wherever it's facing. Just get a nice deep calf stretch here. Taking a few breaths. Good. And then we'll switch legs. I'll switch angles here so you can see my leg. Right leg shoots straight back. And the same thing. We're just starting to roll a little bit in one direction, really getting that foot is staying on the mat, and then go in the opposite direction, just getting some movement happening through our ankle, through all that connective tissue into our joints. Good. And then we'll pause, keeping those toes curled, and we'll just rock back and forth a few times. Nicely done. Again, really taking stock here. How are the calves feeling? And then we'll just press that heel back. Nice into a nice deep stretch here. Few breaths. Beautiful. Nicely done. All right, let's get into some hip work. So, starting with that left leg, we're just going to stick our leg straight out to the side. We're still going to remain sort of in this tabletop position. So with this leg sticking straight out, you should start to feel a little bit of a stretch in through your adductors, inner groin muscles. Try to have your foot as flat as you can on the mat. And then we're simply just going to sink our hips back and forth a few times and just start getting a little action, a little movement happening through our hip, through our groin. Beautiful. And then from here, we're going to pause. Now, we're going to start to build some mobility actions in through our hip. So we're going to work on the inner line, and then of course through our glute med on the outside. So from this position, I want everyone to start to brace their core, create a little bit of tension through your body, and you'll feel it through your arms. As your hands are pressing down on the mat, you're squeezing everything like 5 out of 10 as far as tension. You can still breathe, still have a conversation, but you're just building a bit of tension through your body, through your leg. Now, with this foot, you're gonna start pressing that foot down into the mat. So you're driving it down and lightly to start. You don't have to have full power yet, but I just want you to give me like 30%. So you're feeling the tension through here and you're starting to push this leg down. You should start to feel all the little muscles on the inside of your thigh kind of fire up. And now you're gonna start ramping up that pressure. So start pushing that leg down a little harder. And a little harder still. And now whatever your maximum pressure is that you're driving that leg down into the mat, we're gonna hold it for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And relax it. Good. Take a deep breath in. Exhale it out. All right, now we're gonna start mobilizing through this hip. So with this leg, you're gonna bring that tension back in through your body, in through your arms, really hold it tight. And now your outer hip muscles are gonna start firing up. You're going to lift and hover that foot off the mat, and then we are slowly going to bring it back behind us. And then your toe's gonna tap down. Here, I'll move diagonally. Then you're gonna lift up. It's gonna come all the way back to the side, and you'll slowly lower it. It's gonna be super spicy, so take it easy if you haven't done this movement before. We're gonna do that 2 more times. So, body's still got that tension. Start squeezing those side glute muscles. Lift that leg, hover it. Then we start moving that leg back behind us. Tap the toes. Lift and hover, rotating that hip back out to the side, slowly lower. Beautiful. 1 more time. Lift that leg, move it back behind you, tap those toes down, bring it back to the side, slowly let it down. Beautiful. And from here, we'll just sink back and forth again, rocking back and forth, getting a little more active movement happening through the side of that hip. Beautiful. That leg comes in and we come up to a kneeling position. All right, we're gonna get into some more hip stuff, some balance, a little bit of proprioception, and get into quads, hammies, all that good stuff. So from this kneeling position, we're gonna shift our weight onto the right leg. And with the left leg, we're gonna just lift and hover that knee. And you're trying to keep your balance as I use my jazz hands to help keep my balance. So keep your core engaged. What we're doing now, you're gonna rotate your hip, bring your knee up. Maybe you'll rotate it a few times in this position. Keep your balance as best you can. You have to tap your foot down and reset, no problem. Then start to bring your foot out in front and then place it down into a lunge. Good. All right, from here, we're just gonna lean forward. Your foot stays flat on the mat, and you're just gonna come knees over toes, it's fine. Nice deep lunge, feel it in your calves here. See how much dorsiflexion you have, and maybe come out and back a few times. And just see how that feels for your calves and for your ankle. Good. And you might even want to get a little crazy here. Do a few circles. Again, we're building resiliency here. We should be able to move in all these positions with our knees, with our ankles, especially for anyone who's trail running. You know, you need to be able to be on unstable surfaces, managing different types of terrain. So all this kind of stuff is really good. Beautiful. All right, from here, hands come down in front of the mat. Shift that knee back a little bit just so you can feel a bit of a deeper lunge. Now, from here, I want you to almost think with your pelvis that you're still sort of slightly tucking under, even in this deeper lunge position, and you'll really feel that front of your hip flexor kind of fire up in that stretch a bit more. And you can even squeeze your glute a bit if you want. And we'll just take a few breaths in this position. And then you can even begin with that back knee to almost feel like you're almost trying to drag it forward. And again, you'll just feel some different types of muscle activations, even in a stretch. Beautiful. From here, with this left leg, we're gonna walk it out a few steps, bring it to your foot to a 45-degree angle. try to peel up onto that outer edge so that your knee is tipping out to the side. And see how that feels on that left hip. And we'll just take a few breaths in this position. Beautiful. Now with that left hand, we're going to start to place it on the inside of our left knee. From here, you're going to start to press. Again, start lightly at first, just start to press that knee into your hand. You're just creating some resistance. So hands pushing out, knees pushing in. We're just going to hold for a few breaths. Keep that tension, pushing in to the hand. Beautiful. And then as you start to relax it, I want you guys to really try to pull your knee away from your hand. So really use those outer hip muscles. Squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. Pull that knee away. Beautiful. And then push back in. Creating that resistance. Push that knee into that hand. And now pull it away. Try to pull that knee away from where your hand is. Beautiful. And then push in again. Last time. Pull away. You got it. And then push back in. Nice. All right, so you're gonna walk that foot back into center. You might need to readjust that back knee, have it come in a little bit. We're gonna come back up into our kneeling lunge here and get into a little bit of upper body. I think a lot of times runners tend to neglect how much mobility we actually need through our arms and shoulders. Good arm drive, we still need T-spine mobility. So from here, we're gonna work on our scap mobility and work on our T-spine mobility. So everyone's gonna extend their arms straight out. They don't have to be like directly out. Bring them out a little bit wider. I like to make fists. Again, I'm always trying to create these sort of lines of tension to help me concentrate on the movement. Now, what we're gonna be doing is moving our scapulas. So with your shoulder blades, they go in 4 directions. They elevate and depress, and then they protract and retract. So from this position, what that's gonna look like is you're retracting your shoulders, squeezing them in. They elevate, they're coming up, protract, press out, and then depress, coming down. So it's gonna look like a circular motion when you're doing it, but it's those 4 movements, and especially if you're at a work from home setup, stuck on a laptop, in a janky home office situation, your shoulders will thank you. So we're just gonna go forward in these motions a bit. Just trying to get some fluidity happening in through our shoulder blades. Beautiful. And then we'll relax, keeping our arms extended. From here, we're gonna move into some T-spine rotations. So with that left hand, we're gonna inhale, and it's gonna come up. We're gonna follow our hand, looking over our left shoulder as it opens up, and then close it back in. We'll do that a few more times. Inhale, up and around, and then coming forward. And be intentional with all of your movements. You're really trying to use these as little assessments. How do your pecs feel? Is your shoulder moving as fluidly as you would like it? Do you feel any restrictions? Any clicking, popping, that sort of thing? So you always want to take every bit of movement you do as an assessment on what your body's telling you. Beautiful. Let's do one more. Up and over and back. Awesome. All right, we're just gonna switch sides. So this knee comes down. We'll repeat on the other side. So just as we did on this side, we'll start with our balance work. So all the weight is going to start to shift onto that left knee. Right knee starts to hover. Catch your balance. Start to bring your knee and hip up. Maybe you can rotate it a few times in this position. See which side might be stronger. And then start to bring it forward. Bring that knee up and then lower. All right, let's get into our stretches. So bringing that knee all the way down and coming back up. All the way down. Take a few breaths. I ran this morning, so my calves are definitely feeling super tight. And then come back. So play around. If you want to stay in a static hold, and your calves are telling you that you just need to stay in this position, go for it. If you need to come up and back a few times, all these types of sessions, any classes you take, it's always good to be led into the movements, but always listen kind of to what your body needs. Beautiful. Last one. Good. All right. So hands coming down, and now we're going to start to shift that knee back a little bit more, trying to get a little deeper into this hip flexor stretch. And again, trying to keep pelvis tucked under ever so slightly. You'll feel the difference right away as soon as you engage it, and maybe even like squeeze that left glute a little and just start to lean into the stretch, taking a few breaths. Good. And maybe even start to feel as that knee is down into the mat, see if you can sort of pull. It's almost like you're trying to imaginary pull that leg forward, pull that hip. If there was like an arrow in your hip flexor shooting diagonally in front of you, that's kind of that feeling. We'll just take a few more breaths here. Good. And then with this foot, we're going to start walking it out a few steps, coming to that 45-degree angle, peel onto that outer edge, let that knee drop out to the side, and take a few breaths. And again, if your hip feels like this is the most wonderful stretch for it, you can absolutely stay in this position and you don't have to do the activation part. That just helps get a little bit more workspace into our joint capsule. A few more breaths here. All right, let's bring right hand inside of that right knee. So again, you're just starting to lightly push that knee in and push that hand out, creating that tension and really feeling some activation in and around your hip joint capsule. Beautiful. And now pull that knee away from your hand. Pull, pull, pull. You want to make sure there's space between your hand and your knee. And now push in. Pushing in, driving that tension a bit. And now pull away. You got it. Pull, 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 pull. And now push back in. Beautiful. Pull away. A few more reps. Keep pulling, keep squeezing, and push. Last one. Push, push, push. And then relax. Beautiful. We're going to walk that foot back into center, adjust your back knee, bring it in a little bit, and we'll come back up to our kneeling position. All right, so same thing with the shoulder blades. This time, instead of doing that motion going forward, we're going to reverse it. So hands are coming out. You're thinking about having a little bit of tension here. I like to do it when I'm making fists, and from here, we're just gonna, elevating to start, squeezing the shoulders up, retracting, pulling them down, and then pushing them out. And try to keep your arms as straight as possible. It's super hard. I find I'm constantly bending, but just try to keep your arms as straight as you can in this position. Squeeze, squeeze, squeeze as you go down. And really, you're trying to get to the maximum space that you can. So as much as you can squeeze, as much as you can push down, as much as you can push out. A few more times here. Beautiful. All right, let's get into our T-spine. So right hand moving now. We're gonna inhale, lift up, rotate behind us, looking over that shoulder, and then coming back. Inhaling up, and then exhale as we come forward. And again, this is a great one where you'll really notice a difference, usually left side to right side. A lot of times, depending on what kind of sports you might have played growing up, whether or not you've actually had shoulder injuries, you'll definitely notice a difference, that your T-spine can kind of rotate a little bit more on one side. Beautiful, and we're done. All right, from here, this leg simply kicks back. We come back into our kneeling position. All right, we're gonna move into one of my favorite sequences with pigeon. Everybody's favorite, right? For hips, for glutes. I add some fun twists to it, some good activations. So everyone's gonna start when you're in your kneeling position. And I want you to sort of shift up towards the top of your mat. So you get to see my face a little bit closer to the screen. And from here, your legs are together and your knees are together. So you're going to, we'll do it from an angle. So you're gonna lift your feet off the mat and shift them to the left. And then you're gonna lift up again and shift them to the right. And we're just gonna go back and forth a few times. This just gets a little bit of mobility into our SI joint. So just shift up and back. And then we're gonna shift to the left and pause. So from here, this left leg now kicks back behind us, like so. And then we're in pigeon. So I will move, so I'm a little more on my mat. With your front leg here, adjust as you need. So the keys here is just to try to be comfortable. Don't make sure that you're not having any knee pain. You want to make sure like your ankles are feeling good. Ultimately, everyone's hip mobility is going to be different. Some people are super flexible. I'm really tight in my hips, so I never get, my shin to be parallel. That feels like an impossibility, so I'm sure a lot of you can relate. And then the key with your pelvis, you want to think to keep it square. So even though we're in this position with your left leg trailing and your right leg, you don't want to feel like your pelvis is shifted. So with that bent leg, the right leg in front of you, you want to feel like you're almost trying to draw that side of your hip back a little bit to try to feel like you're a little more square. Hopefully that makes sense. All right, from this position, we are going to stay tall with our spine. You want to think length. You want to think that your chest stays lifted. Our hands are going to come out a little bit wider, but in front of us. And we're simply going to do almost like a push-up in this position. So making sure you're not rounding with your spine, that it's staying tall. We're simply bending our elbows, dropping our chest towards the ground, and then we're pushing back up. And so you should feel a good stretch on the outer part of your hip here. It shouldn't be too difficult, but we're just gonna go up and down a few times. It's a bit of a kinetic stretch here. Just kind of warming things up before we spice things up. All right, one more. All right, and then as we come down, you can come down onto your elbows. But again, I want you to still think, try to maintain that length in your spine and lift in your chest. I don't want you to dump into it like this, okay? So that's the main thing I want for this position, is if you're on your elbows, still to keep a bit of lift in your chest. And we're gonna take a few breaths in this position. Really try to settle and sink into it. I know pigeon can be super intense, so definitely, listen to what your body's saying, but this is where we practice nice, good, deep breathing. We get comfortable with being a little uncomfortable. This is how our connective tissue starts to shift and change and add a little more fluidity for us, a little more space to breathe. Beautiful. All right, we're staying in this position, but right now what we're doing, just like we did with our legs out to the side, you're gonna start to bring a little bit of tension in through your midsection. So you're gonna activate your core a little bit, brace it, start to squeeze, and you'll start to squeeze a little bit of everything actually. Both legs, you can kind of bring a little bit of isometric tension. Now with this front leg, what I want you guys to start doing is maybe like at a 2 or 3 out of 10 as far as intensity, you're just gonna start pushing that leg down into the mat underneath you. And you'll feel it right away. You'll feel all the little fibers around your hips start to fire up. You might start to feel like a weird tingling sensation. That's good. And then you're gonna start ramping that up. So start pushing down with a little more power, a little more strength. You're still keeping that core braced. You're still breathing. If I can talk through all this, you guys can do it. I trust you. Keep pushing, keep pushing. All right, maximum power here. And we're gonna push down for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And relax. Take a deep breath in. Exhale it out. We'll slowly start to come up onto our hands. All right, now this is where it continues to get a little spicy. Start to curl your toes, your back toes under. And then from here, I will forewarn you, be mindful of the hamstring cramp. It may happen. But you're gonna start to bend your knee and flex your heel towards your bum. I can already sort of feel my hamstring. If you're able, reach back and grab the top of your ankle or foot. Be mindful of how this feels, but this should feel like a really nice quad stretch. Now, if this is enough for you, amazing. But if you want to add a little more, I'm the queen of activations. You're gonna learn this. You're gonna start pushing your foot out against your fingertips. So push that foot out against your fingertips just for a few breaths, and then relax it and see if you can pull that heel a little closer to your bum. And we're gonna do that again if you're doing this with me. Push the ankle out and then pull it in closer to your bum. Good, one more. Push it out and then pull that heel in. All right, we're gonna start to release our hands, but I don't want your feet to just go flying down to the mat. Control the movement. So squeeze your hamstring a bit, release the hand, keep it there, and then slowly release. Good job, guys. All right, from here, curl that back toe under. This foot comes up and back. Let's come into a quick downward dog. Pedal it out. Release. Let that blood flow back to that right hip. Pedal it out a few times. And then come back to a kneeling position. And we're gonna do that on the other side, or I guess on this side. So shifting yourself all the way back up. And now we're gonna lift and bring those legs to the right side. And we'll just do it the one time this time. Right leg kicks back behind us as we come into our pigeon. Adjust this front foot as you need it, finding your spot that feels really good for your hip. All right, pelvis, try to square it so that left hip starts to sort of push back. Good. Hands come a little bit out in front of you. We'll take a few breaths just like this. And then we'll start with that kinetic stretch. So we're simply just keeping our chest lifted, hinging at the hip, bending our elbows, chest comes down towards the floor, and we push back up. We're just gonna go up and down a few times. Should really feel a good stretch on the outside of your left hip and glute. Good, last one. As we come down, we'll pause here, coming down onto our elbows. Staying in this position, taking a few breaths here, settle into the pose. Making sure everything is feeling nice around that hip. Beautiful. All right, you know what's coming. We're gonna start some of those activations. So start building that tension all through your midsection, brace that core, maybe feel your legs start to tense up a bit. You're starting to isometrically contract those muscles, even through your arms. They can, you can have your forearms kind of press down into the mat, whatever it takes for you to recruit some of that full body tension. And now again, you're gonna start driving this front leg down into the mat. 2 out of 10 as far as intensity to begin. Just start lightly pushing down. You'll feel all these muscles around the side of your hip and back of your glute start to fire up. So we're keeping our core braced. We're pushing that leg, driving it down into the mat. Good. Maintaining our breathing. You're gonna start ramping it up. So push down a little bit harder, a little bit stronger now. Building that intensity. Keep pushing, keep pushing. Beautiful. Now your maximum power, whatever you got in you to push, drive that front leg down into the mat. And we're holding for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And relax it. Good. Take a deep breath in. Exhale it out. We'll slowly come back up onto our hands. And we'll do the same thing we did on the other side with our quad stretch. So you start to bend that knee rather, bringing that heel up towards your bum. And if you're able, you can reach back, hopefully bypassing a hamstring cramp. I was lucky tonight. And then you're just pulling that heel in towards your bum for a nice, juicy quad stretch. Again, if you want that activation, you can start pushing the top of your foot in to your hand for a couple seconds and then pull that heel in closer to your bum. And just repeat that a few times, pushing it out and then pull that heel in. Beautiful. Pushing that foot out into your hand. And then last one, pulling it in. All right, so we're gonna release this foot. So again, you want control. Let the hand go. You can sort of see my toes still there. Then nice and slow, I'm dropping it back down. All right, curl that toe under. Lift your hips up and out. Quick downward dog. Let that blood flow back to that hip. Pedal it out. Beautiful. And then everyone can meet me in a seated position. All right. From here, let's get into a little bit of self-massage. Hopefully your guys' hips are feeling awesome. But we're gonna do a little bit of self-massage into our calves, okay? I find they definitely take a beating with all the running we do. And so let's show them a little bit of love. Now, you can always do these things with a little bit of hand lotion, but it's totally not necessary. I'm not gonna use any, but we'll just start with our left leg. So you're just in a simple seated, cross-legged position. So I always like to start at my feet. Maybe I should scoot back so you can actually see my toes that haven't had a pedicure in months because of COVID. Let's start by taking our fingers and wedging them in between our toes as best you can. Definitely depending on the type of footwear you use. I mean, now most of us are stuck at home, so it's probably not as bad as if you have specific footwear for the office, but We definitely don't show our toes enough love. So with your fingers just wedged in, I'm simply just mobilizing here. I'm just kind of going back and forth, doing little figure eights, bending and flexing. Yeah, just getting some movement in there. Beautiful. And then with massage, for all of you in your self-isolation who have become artisanal bread makers, this is your shining moment. Every time, or pizza makers, anytime you're kneading dough, you just want to think that same premise when you're giving yourself a massage. So, you want to think, yes, you can use your fingers, but even just think about using the inner part of your palm here with your fingers, so you don't have to just be so pokey, but that you're using your whole palm, and you're just thinking you're kneading bread, we're kneading muscles. Okay, so even with the foot, when you're using your thumbs, be mindful of the pressure and the angle. You don't want to injure yourself, but that's all I'm doing is using the whole palm of my hand on the inside, the arch of my foot, and I'm simply squeezing and then just doing circular motions. So just on the inside of your arch, using your thumb, but also using that heel of your palm to just press in and give yourself a little massage into the arch. I don't run any long distance anymore, but for those of you that are putting in, intense mileage, marathon, ultra-marathon training, really take some time to give some love to your feet for the amount that they're on the road for you. Beautiful. And now moving into the calves, same idea. I like to just start on the inside. You can kind of squeeze the whole belly of your calf muscle, and I'm doing exactly that. I'm taking the heel of my palm plus my thumb, and I'm simply just pressing in and rolling. It's just like dough. And you're just squeezing and giving yourself, you'll know how it feels with how much pressure you want to use. And I just sort of slowly go up and down. I'm not doing anything crazy. I'm just lightly kind of moving the tissue around and just kind of seeing how things feel. All right, let's shift our legs. So we're going to bring it up more into this kneeling position. So getting a little bit of some soft tissue release techniques. So these I definitely use my thumbs for. All I'm doing is going straight up the middle of my calf, from my soleus all the way up to my gastrocs, and I'm just simply pressing in and going all the way down. And from here, this is where the more you do it, you'll kind of get in tune, and you'll feel it right away. Wherever you feel a super sensitive spot, when you're sort of going up and down, we're just assessing. So as soon as you're going up and down, and if you feel that super sensitive spot, for me, it's kind of always in the center where my gastrocs and soleus kind of meet. That's where we're gonna hang out. So you'll press in, and then hopefully you guys can see my feet okay. And then I'm just going to pull my toes up towards me into dorsiflexion, my ankles in dorsiflexion, and then going down. And you'll just go up and back, and you'll feel it. As you're pressing into your calf muscle, it's moving, and you'll feel a difference. And you just start, and I'll just press and release as my toes are coming up and down a few times. And this definitely should have you feeling super good at this point. And just keep pulling those toes up, pressing and releasing. Beautiful. All right, my last technique for the calves. So there may be a lot of you that have bought into various types of massage guns, which are totally awesome, but the original massage guns are simply your two fists, and we do a technique called tapotement. And I like, after a long run, to use this again just to get the tissue kind of moving, to get the, when things feel really tight, you just want to sort of shake it up a bit, get the blood flowing. And so I use the tapotement. And so I'll either use, with a closed fist, the edge of my knuckles and my palm, or sometimes I use the top of my knuckles. So you can kind of play around with it and see what feels. You'll always feel silly doing it, so that's just a given. But I just start quickly tapping in, opposite hand, opposite leg, and you'll feel it wherever your calf is moving. You want to be careful not to do it like on the shin bone. You're sticking to the meaty parts of your leg, and you just do it for however long it feels good. So you can just tap it a few times. Sometimes I'll just take one and just go hit the back a few times. But yeah, a massage gun is just this amplified like times 100. And then after that, I sometimes just give myself a little squeeze. I'll rotate my ankles a bit, making sure I can feel all the tissue if it feels like it's moving a little bit better. And yeah, that's like my best massage tips. We'll quickly do the other side before we wrap it up. I don't want to leave you guys like lopsided. So on that right side, fingers wedge into your toes, and we're just moving them around. Moving them around. Do little figure 8 motions if you want. Bending and flexing of the toes. Good. And then you're remembering that thumb and that palm. We're just coming into the arch of our foot. We're just rubbing in little circles here, as much or as little pressure as your foot needs. And again, especially if you want to get into using, fancy massage oils, it'll feel 10 times better. But for in a pinch just after a run, this is great. All right, getting into our shins, same thing. We're just kneading. So palm and thumb are just kind of squeezing and pressing. I'm just kneading it forward as if I was about to make, I don't know, a sourdough loaf. And just going up and down. And again, you're taking this time to assess, like, does the lower part of your calf feel super tight and sore? Does the top part feel, sore? What's moving well? Always, the more you know about your body, even when you come, to a sports medicine clinic to see a physio, chiro, a massage therapist like myself, you really should know, how your body's working, how it's moving. All right, bringing our shin up like this. So same thing, thumbs come in and we're just pressing all the way down the center line of our calf from the top all the way down. Find your tender spot wherever it is. Oh, for me it's a little lower. All right, so I'm gonna find my tender spot. I'm locking in, and now I'm just pulling my toes up towards my knee. So I'm just really dorsiflexing that ankle. My thumbs are pressed into that sore spot, and I'm just coming up and down a few times. And then I just release it, and I might go above that spot for a few rounds, and then I might go below. Beautiful. And then we'll finish it off with our tapotement. So make your fists and just start lightly, rapidly tapping all the meaty parts of your calf. Get in underneath and behind. Good, and then we'll just give it a final squeeze. Rotate that ankle around a few times. See how everything feels. Good, you can stretch your legs out. And with that tapotement, honestly, I use it so much on myself. It's so good for your quads if you're in this seated position, even along the sides, like just getting in and quickly hammering it out. Being able to just jostle and kind of shake your thigh just when it's feeling lightly tight. This does so much to just like relax our nervous system a little bit with the legs. loosen things up. That's all we want, just to bring a little more fluidity and movement, so that when you run, when you hit your strides, everything feels amazing, right? All right. This was my first live, guys, so thank you to CLA for inviting me to share my practice with you guys. Let's just take a few moments to close off together. So you can just be in your seated position. Maybe just see if you can roll your shoulders up and back a few times, forward a few times. Maybe we're just taking a few stretches, going ear to shoulder. Maybe rotating left to right a few times. Tuck that chin and then extend up. Good, and we'll take a few deep breaths together. In through the nose and out through the mouth. Good. And we'll close off I'll just say, however you're using running right now, whether it's for healing, for peace, for justice, or just running for joy, however you're continuing to move through this time, just continue to do it with love and compassion. So thank you guys for tuning in. My tag Instagram handle, should be pinned there, so if you want to follow me, feel free. If you have questions about my practice or any massage related things, feel free to DM me and I'll try my best to answer them. If you're in the Toronto area, you can definitely come and get treated by me. So just, again, send me a message and I'll tell you where I'm at. And otherwise, everybody have a wonderful evening.